is we're going to go into the assignment we had last time where we had these. We're going to kind of walk through this and make sure we've got it. Show you some things you can do with these, and then we're going to show you how we can add in these parts at the bottom. What I'm going to need for you to do is just kind of walk along the video, um, watch the video, kind of see what's happening with it, and at the end, we'll show you how to submit this in so we can kind of finish everything out for this part of it. So what we're going to do in Snap, hopefully you are able to do this. That the big thing we were going to do was we were going to move and turn. Also going to put the pen down to make sure we've got everything working. And so that now we can make this thing do what we need to do. Just for size wise, we're going to make this 50 steps. We said if we're going to draw a pentagon, it's 360 divided by the number of sides, which would have been 72. And then we would duplicate this. All right, and if we do that, there is our pentagon. If we slow the feet down so we can see it kind of in, not just popping up there, grab it clear here. If you do that, now we can actually see it drawing that part of it out. And what we said to do in the beginning was we were going to draw two different sizes of pentagons to do that one. Now, what we're going to do though is this is where we're going to kind of add some parts of it in. Instead of adding it in to having to redo all the steps on this one, we're going to use a repeat block because we've got all these things we're repeating here. So we're actually going to do this where we just repeat this 5 times. Okay, and again, we'll clear this out so we can see it. Let me speed this up just a little bit so we can make it go a little faster. And now we've got it so we can see how it's going to do there. To make it draw two different sizes, all we need to do is just repeat this same thing we've got here, and we'll duplicate it again. And now we can change that to 100 steps, and then we can see that it would look something like this. Okay, and the way it was drawn on the sheet that we had back here with our assignment was we actually had it where we would draw, maybe start with a triangle, then move up and go from here. And the easiest way to do that is to make some variables. We're going to do 2 variables here. We're going to do it so we can change the length, so we'll make a length. And then we're also going to make a variable, sorry about that, called number of sides, and we're just going to put num sides for short. And so what we're going to do with those 2 variables is if we want to, when we draw, starting off drawing with a triangle, we'll just put this to the side for a little bit. We're going to set the number of sides to 3. And then that way we can use the variable that we're going to repeat this thing, the number of sides. That way we'll, it'll repeat 3 times. Now that's going to change every time we change the sides. If we were having 5, it was 72 degrees. If we're going to draw a pentagon, this is going to change depending on the number of sides. So instead of having to change that every time, we can just use this operator. Because we know it's 360 divided by the number of sides, well, if we do that, we can just do that. And that way, every time we need to draw a new shape, instead of having to worry about changing this and changing this every time, we can just get rid of this. And now we've got, when we draw a triangle, we'll draw a triangle. And if we want to keep adjusting the steps on this one, we can set the length, to 50 that we have now. And then we can just drag that length back in here, do the same thing. So if we need to change the length, we can change that part of it here. To have it then draw the things in order, we probably really need to take this thing and send it back to -200. So we're going to clear everything out. Actually, let's readjust this a little bit. We're going to clear everything out. We're going to go to -200, 0, and then we'll put the pen down and go from there. And just forget about it because it's going to move there. So let's just go ahead and do the pen up first. We'll clear everything out, pick the pen up. We'll go there. We'll put the pen down, and then we'll actually start drawing these things. Okay. While we're here, I'm gonna go ahead and set the pen size. Make it a little bit bigger to like 3. And for this one, we're gonna change the color, make it red. Or you can make it blue or green, whatever color, doesn't matter. Just make this thing change out a little bit. Okay, so now we can see that draw it a little bit quicker. So we've got a little bit better look to it. To move over to the next part, we need to kind of go through a process here of picking the pen up. We're going to move, go ahead and drag that block out. We're going to move some steps over, maybe 100. And then we're going to draw our next shape. And our next shape would be basically kind of the same thing we have here. So we can just duplicate this part. And the only thing we really need to change here is just change this number of sides to 4. And by doing that one, it should make it so that this will look a little bit different when we draw it out. Because we're going up and out of the angle, this will actually look a little bit bigger. Maybe not a lot bigger, but it does appear that this thing is going to grow. And if you want to change the color, you can make it so you can change the color back down here somewhere. So if we, do that, that'll change that to a blue one. Now we could keep that same process going. We could copy this part of it again. We'll pick the pen up, we'll move over 100 steps, we'll set it down, we'll change the lengths to 5. But if we want to keep doing this, and again, if you use a repeat block, in computer science, they call that an iteration. And if we want to keep doing this, we could keep doing this. But if we're going to keep repeating this same process, because we're going to take the same thing we've got again, we're going to copy this block, duplicate it. Well, don't need all that. Just needed that part of it here. Had a little bit too much duplication. We would add that, and you start to see the code kind of gets long as we get down here. We'll change this to 5. We'll turn this off. Click on it to get it going, and then we have that. That way it actually, you can tell that it really starts to grow now because of the way this is set up. If we don't want to keep doing that, and that goes back to this part of it of, changing the sizes, changing the colors of this one. One thing we're going to do for this one to do the iteration is that instead of repeating these same things we've got here, you can actually just kind of take this off to the side for a little bit. And we're going to use another repeat block. And then once we've got this thing, once we've got all these steps we're doing, because we keep repeating the same steps, we can just repeat it. If we want to kind of do this, just to kind of show you what we're going to do here. That we'll repeat it one time, so we've got this. If we want to make it so that the next time over we change this thing, from 3 sides to 4 sides, what we can do is just after we've drawn this shape that we have here, we can then change the number of sides by 1. So now if we do this thing 2 times, one didn't change. Here. So sometimes when we're doing this one, we have to kind of adjust this one. This one, for some reason, the change size didn't work. Let's go ahead and try this. So we're going to set the number of sides to number of sides plus 1. See if that will work. Okay. Realize what I was doing here. Either one of those should have been fine. But I've set the length and the num sides inside that. We need to just take those 2 things out and put it out there, because it was resetting the number of sides to 3. So that way now we can kind of do that part of it. And then should be able to put that in here and be okay. All right, now let's try it again. There we go. All right, so now we're doing that. And sometimes that's just mistakes you're going to make when you're setting things up, that you put some things in the wrong side, and I did that part there. So again, by having that one inside here, it kept resetting it back to 3, even though we were telling it to change, and it did, and it would reset back to 3. So that was part of that one. Okay, so now you can do this one 2 times. If you want to repeat it 4 times, every what you want to do, you can do that part of it. And you can even, where you got your pen color here, how we change it to red, if you go back over to your pen color here, you can just tell it to change the pen hue. And that way, every time it moves, it should change the color that you have there. Okay, and you can do that, every how many times you want to. And then the last kind of piece that we were talking about here was letting the user do input to come up with these parts. Is one of the big things that's going to ask you to do is you've got to have input on your program. So this is something that you'll have to do later on when we go through some things. So you have to basically ask for input. That's one of the requirements when you're doing some programs later on. And with Snap, really easy to do that. You can just grab out this question and ask, what's your name? And it's just the common thing. Whenever you do this, always bring out the answer, because you have to do something with the answer. Because this would be like asking you, if you go to any restaurant, they're like, what would you like to eat? And you just sit there and look at them with a blank stare on your face. That you have to answer that question, or else nothing really gets done. So this one's kind of that same thing. So you can ask them, how many shapes would you like to draw? And then we can do that back in the beginning, back up here. Or we can do it after you clear it out, or whatever you want to do. Doesn't really matter where you ask this one. You just have to ask it before the answer we've got here. So if you ask this one, if you say, how many shapes would you like to draw, you would just put that answer back in here. And now when you put that part in, you can tell it, if you want to draw 5 shapes, hit enter, and it'll draw 5 shapes for you. If you only want to draw 3 shapes, you can have it draw 3. So you can do that, and you can do that to answer all kinds of different questions. You could have it where that you could ask another question. If we ask this question a little bit later on, actually, we could, if you wanted to ask 2 questions, we could do this back up here where you could do this. We could ask another question, and we'll plot the answer here. That we can ask what or how many sides or how many sided polygon, or something like that. How many sides to the polygon to start? And then that could be where you set this part here. So if we do this one, says how many sides to start a polygon. So if you want to start with a pentagon, you could start with 5. And how many shapes would you like to draw? Let's draw 3. Okay, and so again, all kinds of different things you can do to get everything going. What I need for you to do, just to make sure that you've actually gone, and again, you can slow these steps down and go back and adjust this and do whatever you need to do. But what I need for you to do, to save this thing, make sure you're logged in first. If not, go back and log in. You want to save this thing as some topic. We could call this, I think I call this like 3.03 or something like that. We're going to save it, so we have it here. And then after you save it, you need to click on it again, save it as, click on the 3.03 again, and click share, and it's going to ask if you want to share. Click yes, and then when you do that, you should have a longer URL up here. Now that, go back and highlight that. Go back to the Google Doc you've got here, and then you should be able to click on this one, and it won't show up here because I'm in teacher mode for this part. But you should be able to turn this thing in and just add that link in there. If for some reason you do not remember what your login is, you didn't write it down, take a screenshot of this, this whole thing, and then turn in that screenshot on Google Docs, and that way that'll be that part. So that'll be your assignment for Friday. Just watch through this video, do the same steps. And again, you can adjust it to be whatever you need it to be, but just kind of follow this basic guidelines here because this is actually a pretty good, idea of how to ask questions and use the repeat blocks and do all kinds of different things with it to get all the details going. So if you have any questions, shoot me an email. I'll be at school between 8 and 3:30. And other than that, again, just turn this back in. That'll be the assignment for Friday for the e-learning day. And after that, enjoy your fall break, and we'll see you after that.